Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 list. This week's top 10 list is yet another 10 ways to collect. I was asked how people should collect or what different ways are there to collect, and I started writing down all the things I could come up with. Came up with 10 pretty quick. I went through 40 like nothing, and I've got about 30 more. So, still going 10 at a time. Hopefully, these are giving you guys ideas on things that you can collect, ways to collect, what to collect. Remember, a lot of people haven't seen a lot of these notes, and it's hard to collect something you've never seen before. But once you know something exists and you know about it, well, that could guide you in that direction. First and foremost, when it comes to collecting, I always say collect what you like. The question is, what do you like? And if you haven't seen everything, then you don't know. All right, so we're going with 10 more ways to collect. I don't even remember what number we're on. I'm sure it'll be in the title somewhere. But anyway, these are in no particular order. Just happen to be the order I wrote them down. And side note, this is also a way for me to show off my collection because so many of you have been asking, you should do a full collection show or whatever. And that would just take so long. And basically, you're seeing a lot of my notes right now as I'm doing all of these. Um, Not all of them, but most of them. All right. Uh, let's get on with this week's top 10. Number one this week, like I said, no particular order. We're going with collecting by the paper stock. Okay. This particular note uses the same paper that we use today. It is simply just a larger size. And one of the things you're going to notice about this is when we zoom in real close, you can see the blue and red fibers right here. There's blue and red fibers over here as well. It's the same paper stock we currently use. You can find those fibers in our current stuff. And you can see this is from 1899, so we've been using the same stock for quite some time. In fact, even if you go back to 1862, the first notes printed will also have those fibers in there. So as far as the paper stock goes, this is one example of types of paper stock, but it's not the only one. If you go with a CSA, these were printed on rice paper. If you go into the 1700s, you have notes that actually have ground up fish scales in them to make them harder to detect. And these, particularly, are extremely thick. Even through the case, you can feel how thick of a note this actually is. And then you've got stuff printed on, I don't want to say on regular paper, but just on a thicker paper than what you're used to writing on, but this is by no means the same paper that our notes are made out of. So yeah, here's 4 different types of paper stock that have been used to make notes in the past, and I'm sure you can find more. So that's number 1 this week. Number 2, we are going with notes that have overprints. Now, here's the classic example. This is the Hawaii note, emergency currency from World War II, and they stamped Hawaii on it here and on the back as well, just to make sure everybody knew this was Hawaii note. And by using a brown seal like that, if Hawaii was invaded, Congress could simply pass a law saying any note stamped Hawaii is no longer valid. Anyway, Hawaii is the overprint here. Here's a CSA with a green overprint. Not very many of these are out there, so these are kind of rare to find. I've got a fractional that has the 25 as an overprint, and on the back it actually has specimen as an overprint. And then another fractional here. This has what would be known as glue. They put glue on the paper, they printed with the glue, and then rubbed bronzing powder on it to give the bronze overprint. So these are just some examples of overprints. So that's number 2, collecting notes with overprints. Number 3, some of you want a full series on this one. Notes featuring nudity. This is the most famous note. This note here got the entire series banned because, of course, she's not wearing any clothes on the... Well, she's barely wearing something on the bottom, and the top is fully exposed. Here is a note featuring a lady that's just hanging out in the field there. And here's the Cook Islands note, and she's just riding a shark. There's nothing wrong with that there. So yeah, there are plenty of notes that you can find out there that contain nudity, not just the ones that were just ridiculously beautiful, and a couple people decided to tell us what we can and can't have. So that is number 3, notes with naked people. Number 4, we are going with security features. Let me find here. All right, security features. Here are some security features on notes that you probably weren't very much aware of. There's microprinting. Here's an 1896 silver certificate, and it features the Constitution right here. And the thing is, if you zoom in, you can read it. That fine print is legible. It's hard to show with my camera, but if you take a magnifying glass, that is legible printing on the bill. Using microprinting is nothing, we see it on a lot of our bills, so it's nothing new. In fact, you can see these very light dots here that aren't connected. Actually says there's writing there. I wish I could show it a little better. The other thing with this one is there is the watermark on this side. You've got the strip in the note as well. What are some of the other features here? This one shows the red and blue fibers really well in the paper. Showing the back of this one, once again, you can see those are part of the paper. And then you've got other forms of microprinting, like, for instance, how tight these lines are on the back. When these get counterfeited, when people tried to counterfeit these, those would all blend together and you couldn't see the individual lines. So yeah, it doesn't seem like it, but those extremely fine prints, that is a security feature on these. Now, there's all kinds of other security features you can find on notes. These are just the ones that I had off the top of my head. You can put together an entire set of all the different security features on notes. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 5, I don't have any of these, so I'm turning to the book. And I thought it was important enough to include, even though I don't have any. It kind of blends two things that I do not do, but they still list them in my book. And by book, I'm talking Paper Money of the United States. I'm talking about encased postage stamps. You can see right there, encased postage stamps. Now, during the Civil War, the first incarnation of change had to do with using stamps, okay? You can use stamps, believe it or not, as currency. Stamps are spendable currency to this day. It's a little piece of paper that has a value, and that value is acknowledged. So technically you can spend stamps. But what they did was, since change was hard to come by, they encased the stamps in these little bronze or brass circlets, which were about the size of a coin. And by doing that, they essentially made coins out of these stamps. Now, there are tons and tons of different varieties that you can find. And a lot of these, look at the $18,000 on that one. I mean, a lot of these run in the thousands. I don't collect coins. I don't collect stamps. But here is a stamp, which technically is paper money, embedded in a metal disc, which some people would call a coin, listed in my paper money book. So yeah, how can I not include encased postage stamps in my lists of things you can collect? All right, let's see, that was 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was 5. Number 6, I'm going with remainder notes. Remainder notes are notes that were printed, but they were never issued, okay? The way you can tell a remainder note, first of all, they're probably going to come from a bank. Here's the State Bank of Michigan. The State Bank of Michigan printed these notes, but they never released them into the world as currency. And you know that because there is no serial number and there is no signatures. Here's Canal Bank. Once again, no signatures, no date, no serial numbers, no nothing like that. My Louisiana, my Dick's note. This note was never issued. This particular one wasn't. no date, no signatures. Those are remainders, notes that were printed for a specific bank for a specific purpose, and either they printed some and released them and then the bank shut down and these were never issued, or they were printed and the bank never issued them in the first place. So they are notes that remained unused. That's how they get the name remainder notes. That's a whole nother group of collecting right there. All right, that was number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Number 7, we are going with scripts. Now, what is a script? And I'm not talking about a movie or a play. A script is money that was issued by a company, okay? For instance, Mechanics Savings and Loan Association. That's not a business, or that's not a bank. That was a business, Mechanics Savings and Loan. And here is the Manufacturers Exchange Company. So once again, these are companies. And what they did was issue money, and they were the ones backing it. So this could be circulated, almost like gift certificates is one way to think of it. The way we use gift certificates today, that's kind of how these were. This particular one is probably a bad example because I think it's savings and loan. This may have been issued by a particular bank, but this one most certainly is a script, and it's a $3 script from the Manufacturers Exchange Company, which I think is cool. So yeah, whenever a business or a school is another way. A lot of schools would print their own money for use for the students while on property, and those are all known as scripts. So you can go script hunting. That is number 7. Yeah, number 8. Yep, that's number 7. Number 8. Number 8 this week. These are World Bank notes that were actually printed by the BEP, the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. That's who prints our notes. But sometimes they will also get contracts for other countries, and you can put together a set of all of those notes. Now, you're going to see that these also have overprints, by the way, so they could have fallen under the first category this week. But that's what makes these notes foreign, but yet so familiar. They have a very familiar look to them when you see how there's these ovals and the squares and the way the printing is along here. Very familiar look to us, but from a completely different country. That's because the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the BEP, was the one that printed these notes. So those are kind of cool, trying to find foreign notes printed by the US for other countries. That was number 8. Number 9. Number 9 this week, we are going with notes that are hand-signed. That's what we're going with. Hand-signed notes. Here is a fractional hand-signed by Spinner. Let's see. Here's obsolete hand-signed by the bankers there. I've got 1779 hand-signed $50 note. That's a Continental. And here is number 26 on the top 100. It's a $100 note, CSA, of course, hand-signed. The date's hand-signed, serial number's handwritten. Another CSA, also hand-signed with a hand-signed serial number. And another CSA as well, Slayer note, hand-signed like that. So, yeah, you can find notes that were actually signed by real people, unlike the stuff we have today where the signatures are just printed on there. So that's number 9. Number 10. You can find notes of different sizes. Here's a postal or fractional currency. You can see how small that is. And here's another colonial. This is a colonial. Yep, 1770 is a colonial. And of course, we've got notes of the size that we have now, and of course, large size notes as well. These are just 4 examples of various sizes you're going to find on money. If you open that up to world currency, you can find hundreds of different sizes of notes. I try to keep my collection on this continent anyway. But there are 10 more ideas for how to collect. If you learned anything new this week, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. Love reading all your comments. Guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.